Has anyone ever tried to intentionally kill you? Serious. Yes. We had a crazy old woman in my apartment complex. She had it in her head that I and a few of my friends were some kind of bad guys. I don't know why. To my knowledge, none of us had never touched her, her stuff, or even exchanged 3 words with her. Every once in a while she'd see me and yell at me, mostly incoherent rambling. One day I was walking out in one of the parking areas. It was a nice day and lots of people were out, so the parking area was really sparse. I heard a car engine being gunned and, sure enough, I saw this woman barreling toward me in an old sedan, engine roaring. I ran behind a utility pole at the edge of the parking area. She clipped the pole hard and ran right into a corner of a garage. The police and paramedics came out and they took her away. I never saw her again. In elementary school, my best friend came to school with a gun to shoot me first, then everyone else. I was on family vacation and he got caught with the gun while looking for me at school. Didn't know until a few years later. It's kinda surreal. I don't think anyone has noticed OP said fricking elementary school. Jesus man, that's crazy. My brother swung an axe at my head. It was old, notched, and blunt, but still sunk into my skull and knocked me out. I woke up in my bed and spent the next few weeks in perpetual agony. I still get migraines every few weeks, and it's been nearly a decade. I confronted my mother about it a few months ago, about why she just put me to bed even though there was a gouge in my bro, why she just sent my brother to his room, why she never called the police or an ambulance. She just said, well, you had locked the door. I've not spoken to my brother since I was 17, and I've not spoken to my mother since she told me that he was just acting out. The C tried to murder me. You don't swing an axe into somebody's face because you're having a tantrum. I was scuba diving with my then alcoholic boyfriend in a murky lake when I was 18. We were down about 40 feet and the visibility was really low, so I couldn't see him. I had just checked my gauge and after being down there for 10-15 minutes, I had plenty of air left. Then I took a breath, and nothing. The diaphragm in the regulator clicked and there was nowhere. I started to try to look around for him and then I felt that I was stuck. At first I thought I was caught on something, but then I realized that he had turned off my air and was holding me down. He wouldn't let go and he wouldn't let me take his extra regulator. I knew that even if I could get away, I might not make it up to the surface safely, but that was my only alternative. The only problem was he wasn't letting go. I couldn't get at the air valve on my tank and I couldn't get at him. My mind kept switching between thinking I'm going to die and stay as calm as possible to keep your respiratory rate down. He let me struggle for what seemed to be forever and then finally he decided to turn my air back on. I immediately surfaced and he followed. When I asked him why he did that, he said, I wanted to see what would happen to you. It was one of the most terrifying things I have ever experienced. This is scarier than in rage violence, that creepy curiosity. My ex once pointed to some mushrooms in our backyard and tried to convince me they were edible. I knew they were poisonous, and I think he did, too. I don't think he was intending to kill me, but I had a kid hold a gun to my head at a party because his girlfriend was sitting on my lap. A lot of people were sitting outside around a fire, and I was sitting next to this girl. This other girl comes up and starts talking to her, and ends up plopping down on my leg. If I were a horse, you'd say she was sitting side saddle. I didn't think nothing of it, and pretty much ignored her. Not much later, I was walking around the house to take a pee when her boyfriend was walking past, and stops me and says he needs to talk to me. He wasn't a friend, but we've crossed paths before. I didn't think anything of it. We kinda go around the side of the house, and he pulls a semi-auto handgun out from behind his back, and holds it like a wannabe gangster. Hard to describe, but it was up at his head level, sideways, about a foot from his head, aimed at my head. I was pretty drunk, and told him to chill out. No need to be pulling guns out. We're having a party. We're all here to have fun, etc etc. He says he doesn't want me messing with his girl. I try to explain to him that she just sat on my leg and I wasn't even talking to her, but he wanted to make his point so I'll let him. He tucked the gun into his waistband and covered it with his jacket and walked away. As I was walking back to the fire, one of his buddies gets in my way and starts talking smack about me messing with his friend's girl. I don't think he finished his sentence before my friend's friend, who is a big, fearless kinda guy, punched him square in the mouth, and then he turned to gun kid who was a few feet away and said something like, "If you pull that gun out, I'm going to make you eat it." A few other non-violent types started suggesting that gun kid and his buddy should probably leave, and they did, but not after making a big spectacle of themselves once they were a safe distance away. Talking smack, and gun kid was pulling his jacket up so we could see the handle of his gun. I found out the next day that gun kid ended up going to jail that night. He was in the parking lot of a 7/11, showing off by lifting his jacket, and a cop saw it. I guess the cop drew his gun on the kid, and a bunch of squad cars showed up and it turned into a big spectacle. If I recall correctly, the kid got a year and a day in state prison. Sounds like he had just gotten a gun and had a hankering to show it off and intimidate. This is one of those, sadly rare, circumstances where people get what they deserve. My mom tried to run me over once when I was 17. I'd been in a slight motorcycle accident, and after being checked at the hospital and released, I elected to go to a hotel with my then girlfriend who my mom detested rather than go home with my family. My mom loaded my dad and brother in the van as heck. She climbs into the driver's seat, and as my GF and I are walking across the parking lot nearby, she saw us holding hands, threw the van in reverse and tried like heck to hit us, squealing tires and all, but missed. My dad grabbed the wheel, shut the van off and came around to get her out of the driver's seat. At her. Good times. Went to pick up a girlfriend at her house. Her dad didn't like me around, so I decided to wait at a nearby soccer field. Sat in my car with the windows down and started to light a cigarette. Van pulls up next to me about a parking spot away, cusses at me and asks me what set I claim. I say nothing. Guy from backseat reaches out the driver's window, says "F you" and starts shooting. My ears popped. Things felt in slow motion. Heard tires screeching and picked up my head to see people running or speeding off in their car. I was calm. Cigarette in my mouth, not lit. I turn my car on, leave the parking lot, and once I reached the main street I started to shake. Called my girl and told her what happened, still not knowing if I got hit. I get there, she is outside waiting for me. I get out the car and ask her to check me. I was not hit, but the side of my car was shot up. Update. Thank you everyone for the kind words and letting talk about something that I've been ashamed of. This is the most I've spoken about this, and thank you everyone to let me finally share. Nice story. It's actually amazing how people don't know if they got shot when they are at gunpoint. Adrenaline is a strange thing. When I was about 17, a guy I was dating hanging out with got blackout crazy drunk and started preaching some satanic crap, really getting frothy about it. Then I guess decided he wanted to kill me. He pinned me on the ground and choked me till I blacked out, then tried dragging me into his house. We were in the backyard. His brother and his GF came out and they pried me away from him. My neck was covered with black and purple bruises for weeks. Hurt to swallow. Lost my voice for a few days. Never saw him again. For obvious reasons. Many times. I have been stabbed twice. Hit with everything from baseball bats to a concrete block and shot at multiple times. I have been a bouncer, exec protection, skip tracer and repo man. Now I work on computers. I rarely get shot at these days. I was walking around Houston late at night with a friend after my prom. We were having a good time and talking about high school since we were so close to being done. We round the corner to get back to his house and two guys come up out of nowhere, demand our wallets. I had left mine at the house as to not lose it. My friend had his. The two guys shot me in the chest and fled. After that the ambulance was called and the last thing I remember was throwing up an enormous amount of blood at the hospital. I was in a medically induced coma for about a week, then woke up and was fine. With the worst input it was the best output. My school supported me. People constantly prayed for me. And I was on the upswing. The thing that really bothered me and continues to bother me to this day is thinking about how one person could consciously decide to take my life over a wallet. It was the worst thing that ever happened to me, but now I am in college and on the diving team. So eat that, suckers. Yes, well, kinda. I've had a gun to the back of my head. I was 16. I had a GF named Christy. I wanted to do something fun and funny for her birthday. As I had a key to her car, my plan was to sneak out, pick up a mutual friend and decorate her car inside and out so she'd see it in the morning before school. This was around 1994. It's about midnight and I sneak out and drive to my friend's house. I see his light is off but he's instructed me to wake him up by tapping on the window. I'm dressed in a blue hoodie with the hood over my head. I start tapping, first lightly, then a little harder. Next thing I know I hear a get down on the ground. I turn to my right and his dad, who is a Pasadena, TX, police officer, is running at me gun drawn. Can't figure out who I am because of the hood. I put my hands up. He turns me around, throws me to the ground, puts the gun to the back of my head, starts asking questions about his kids, his family, his house, turns me over and realizes I'm his son's close friend. Almost starts crying because he nearly shot me as I clearly looked like some thug in dark clothing trying to get in house. I was 16 at the time, so I was invincible. Grateful he didn't shoot me. There was a massive blackout of my university neighborhood's power grid, and it was darker than I've ever seen it. I was crossing the street with some friends, when suddenly a car's lights went on and sped toward us on screeching tires. We had to run and dive toward the other side of the street, but redemption. A cop car had been waiting nearby. It switched its sirens on, sped after the offending car and nabbed the driver. I was a pizza delivery driver. I delivered an order to a house outside the city. As I was returning to the store, a car pulled over in front of me and put on their flashers. I pulled over to see if I could help. Situation seemed weird. Guy got out of passenger side and started yelling for help. It seemed more weird. I started to drive away. The guy unloaded a gun at head level into my car as I drove away. All 7 shots missed me. 5 hit my car. I'm very lucky. That's why my boss tells me I'm fired if I ever stop to help someone while on the clock. At least, I'm pretty sure that's his thought process. Maybe. I was in high school. The fights between me and my brother had reached an epic levels, and me going to school with bruises all over was not an uncommon occurrence. One night, I came home late, stage crew, and my brother's motorcycle was parked just far enough in front of the drive where I couldn't get my car in the garage. I go inside the house, and bro and his buddy are sitting in front of the TV being their normal selves. Bro, can you please move your bike? I need to get my car in the garage, and I'm currently blocking mom's spot. Frick off. Come on, bro. I'm tired. Don't be a butthole. Please go move your bike. I said, frick off. Listen, either you move my bike, or I will. You touch it, you be, and I'll kill you. Rewind a couple of weeks. Bro and I had gotten in another fight, and I received a beating for listening to one of his CDs without asking permission. I had called my aunt in California and asked her to buy me a train ticket out there. I finally believed that bro was going to kill me and I needed a place to stay. My aunt called my dad, parents divorced, and told him what was going on. Bro had been smart over the years. The beatings never occurred at my dad's, and since mom always asked what did you do to upset him, it didn't occur to me to go to my dad for help. Dad was a cop, and he wasn't brooking any of that bulls. He invited me for dinner and made me take off my shirt and show him the bruises. He told me that if bro ever threatened me again, to call him immediately. Fast forward, I'm feeling confident, and I tell bro that he's been threatening to kill me for years, and I don't believe him anymore. I go outside to figure out a way to move this large motorcycle without laying it on its side. Bro comes running out and tells me that he's freaking serious. I touch that bike, he's going to kill me. Me, being a teenage smart butt, lick my finger and touch the gas tank. Bro moved faster than I'd ever seen him move before, grabbed me by the hair and started beating the living crap out of me. At one point he had me down on the ground, and he was standing over me. I swung my arm up quickly and punched him in the groin, ran upstairs into my room, blocked the door with my bed, and called my dad. Dad heard bro screaming at me over the phone and he just said I'll be right there and hung up. He only lived 5 minutes away, so he was there right quick. He got bro out of the house and sitting in his car. Buddy was in trouble as well, because he did nothing but watch while bro beat on me. And there they sat until my mother came home and my dad let her know in no uncertain terms that if my brother hurt one more hair on my head he'd have bro arrested and taken to jail. It's been over 20 years since that night. Bro has gone through many relationships since then. I have no idea if he's beaten anyone since then, but he hasn't beaten me. Once, I'm young and dumb, so I street race a lot. One time some guy insisted we race for keepsies and I agreed cause I'm still dumb and there was no freaking way I could lose. In the end I won and the guy was a sore loser and wouldn't give up my prize. I didn't care enough to pursue it, so I took off. However, he followed me and tried to run me off the freaking mountain. I had a feeling he was gonna try something stupid and slammed on the brakes. He slammed into and over the guardrail into a 10 featuring drop. He survived. I know this cause he came to my house 2 days later with his parents trying to sue me for the damages. I told them to frick off and told them all about the bet and how he tried to kill me. And that was the first time I saw a parent publicly beat the crap out of their kid. I know this cause he came to my house 2 days later with his parents trying to sue me for the damages. That's freaking hilarious. This friend from school who killed his father and made it look like a suicide took me to the roof of his home to show me his special place and tried to push me off the roof, but I grabbed him and made it clear he was going with me. I haven't spoken to him since. That's some serial killer type crap right there. It was at the end of primary school, so we were both like 10/11. I was the subject of pretty intense physical and mental bullying, as well as some mental bullying from one teacher, from when I was around 8. The administration did nothing, not even after this. We were in PE and I hit a tennis ball by accident near, about 5 meters away, but it was coming out of the sky. The class B. She screamed this weird sounding scream, which I found hilarious. QND laughed at. So the guy who was dating her, who was in cahoots with the bullies, waited for us to get back to class, for when the teacher wasn't there, and pulled my head back and ran an open pair of scissors across my throat. I still think about that moment, and most of the stuff that went on at that school. Lately I have strongly considered legal action for their inaction for 4 freaking years, but it's a he said she said situation really. I don't think it's he said she said when there is a sliced throat as evidence. Got shot at once, on a boat. My brother and I were out fishing at my uncle's place, bumfuck nowhere, Wisconsin. There's a road that goes right next to the lake. We were about 100 yards from road in the middle of the night and we saw a car driving down the road. It stopped, turned around, then came back and shined its headlight out at us. My brother and I both looked at each other like this is weird, let's get out of here. So I started the motor and started heading back to our uncle's place. Over the sound of the motor we hear someone saying something, so I idled down the motor to hear what they were saying. As soon as I did that, POOW, a single gunshot goes off. I pin it and dive this little shitbox across the lake. We found a 12 gauge shell on the side of the road where the car was the next day. Not sure if they were shooting at us or just trying to scare us, but the second one sure as frick happened. I was like 13. Late to the game again, but here's my story. I was an annoying teenager, and my big brother especially got annoyed by me. One day, he got especially mad at me, can't remember what for, and jumped on me with a butcher knife in his hand. He straddled me and was on top of me, and I managed to hold him off by holding onto his wrist. I screamed bloody murder while he kept telling me, "You never shut the frick up, I'm going to kill you." Fortunately our neighbor from across the street heard the commotion and ran over. She saw my brother and screamed at him to stop, which he did, instantly. So here's the weird part. I kind of blew it off. I mean, I didn't die, and didn't get hurt, and wasn't too different from other fights I had with him. It just became this funny story in the back of my head. So like 10 years later, I brought it up to my brother, joking around. Our relationship had improved dramatically when we became adults, but he had zero recollection of it, and basically said it just didn't happen. I was confused, but ultimately realized I must have just conflated some minor things in my brain. But clearly it hadn't happened the way I remembered it. Then about 10 years after that, my brother admitted, "Yup, it happened exactly the way you described." Basically he was mortified by himself after it, and I never really brought it up. So when I brought it up 10 years later, he was still kind of mortified at his behavior at that point and just acted like it never happened. Then, it became my go-to anecdote for "Isn't the brain crazy?" I believed my brother tried to kill me, but he didn't stories. And honestly, hearing me say those stories really bummed him out, because not only did he in fact try to kill me, but now he had me believing I had conjured the memory up in my mind. So he finally just came out and told me. On mobile, so forgive my typos. TL. Dr. Confronted by a poorly medicated, knife-wielding 10-year-old. When I was a senior in high school, I took a nanny, or manny as my friends called it, job for a friend of my dad. Overall it was an amazing job, but one of the two kids I was watching had moderate ADD and they were messing with his medication that summer. It made him very unpredictable. Most of the time we just hung out and played Smash Brothers on the N64. But one day, and I can't remember what triggered it, he had a severe meltdown. I had put my foot down on something and he screamed violence at me and ran off upstairs. I guessed he was running to the kitchen to get a knife, so I quickly got the girl I was watching and her friend into her room to keep them safe. A few seconds later he burst into the basement wielding a large knife, still screaming at me. I was scared shitless. Being the awkward teenager who had never really experienced any kind of fighting or violence, I pretty much broke down into tears. It seemed to disarm him enough to the point where I could talk to him rationally. I explained that I didn't do that stuff to be mean. It was literally my job. Thankfully he understood pretty quickly and stood down. I was basically cornered in a hallway protecting the girl's door. I never told his mom about it. Not sure if it would have done any good. He didn't need his life to be any more difficult. You were one heck of a manny. My ex was emotionally, verbally and physically abusive. He was extremely controlling and possessive. One day we went for a walk. On the way back we came across his cousin. He looked at me and said hi, so I said hi back. As soon as we entered the house he started screaming at me because I said hi to his cousin, calling me a WOS, useless H who was only good for swallowing CM. I probably fricked all his friends, right? Look at the way I flirted with his cousin, the way I looked at him. I wanted to have sex with him, obviously. The look I gave him, bedroom eyes, that I meant I wanted him to frick me all night long. My ex was sure of it. First he threw me onto the bed and started strangling me. Then he bit my arms, my breasts, my stomach and my legs. Wish he was doing it to us. He hit me with his fists, repeatedly, on my head and chest. I was dizzy. He turned me around and hit me on my back. He took off his belt and started hitting me with the metal part and I was bleeding. I cried out and screamed. He threw me on the floor and kicked me and hit me with his belt some more. If anyone freaking hears you, I'm going to kill you. Stop crying. Stop screaming. I'm going to freaking kill you, useless bee. He started calming down, choked me some more, then smoked a cigarette and burned me with it. Demanded we have sex and I obliged. Everything hurt. I told his family. We lived with them. They said it was my fault for not speaking out sooner. I pressed charges but police never did anything. This absolutely breaks my heart. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.